Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar from Keystroke Computer Solutions. Today we will have Ken Quigley, who is our founder and president, and he will be leading us through opportunities and how you can use them and what it means to you. Now, just a bit of format. At the end, we will take questions. So in the question panel on the right-hand side, you can put your questions in, but I will be reviewing them at the end of the webinar, and we'll be answering them then. So now let's turn it over to Ken.
Excellent. Thanks, Vic. Yeah, we're pushing the questions to the end because we've got a number of agenda items, and we thought about breaking them up, into different sections, but feared that maybe people would be asking questions about stuff that, is about to be covered. So indulge us, please, with this format. The one other thing I'm going to ask is, do submit the questions. We're going to try to respond to more how-tos than tech support. So we've got a terrific tech support team that's far more qualified than myself. So we'll leave the tech support questions to them. The reason that we have the website up is I want to make sure that no one feels pressure to be madly scribbling down notes because I want to just introduce people to some training resources. So if you scroll down on our home page, oh, went too far. Okay, and it says free online training. You click on this. And if you go over here and you click on opportunities, you're going to see a basic coverage. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with it in greater detail. Each one of these are 3 to 5 minutes. Today's lesson is going to be an hour, but these are good recaps, and I'd rather you be focusing on the exercise today rather than worrying about taking notes because you can repeat with these later. Okay, so without further ado, let's launch ACT. Now, what are opportunities? Opportunities, in my opinion, are one of the most important features of ACT. Opportunities take what, Microsoft Outlook, the organizer part of it with the contacts and the calendars, and really make it into a business application. By definition, it is a way of tracking your recording and tracking your potential sales. It's also a way of organizing your transactional data. But most importantly, it became a tool for people to really have kind of like a floating reminder list of all the business opportunities that they've got cooking. Now, the reason that they're called opportunities is precisely that. If you tried, if someone handed you a business card and said that they want to buy something from you, and you put them into your database and you started pursuing them and you were calling them and scheduling follow-ups and things like that, the natural order of things would be that pursuit would stay live as long as you remembered to keep following up. You wouldn't otherwise have a list of all the opportunities that you've got for business without this section. So it's extremely important, just from a high level understanding of how it works. But the nice thing that ACT has done, not only was it like the original CRM, it's made the process very, very intuitive. So without further ado, I want to get into the actual process of creating an opportunity, and we'll just see how the workflow goes. So the first part is on creating, and I do expect that for some of the people in the audience, this is going to be review certain parts of it, but just indulge me, we're going to be getting in to quite a bit. So the first part, we always start with the contact. And the reason we start with the contact is that when we create a new opportunity from the contact, that particular contact will automatically be attached to it. Okay, so, and the nice thing about ACT is that there's a number of different ways that you can create an opportunity. One, you can click on the opportunity tab, okay, and then create new opportunity. That's a bit more mouse clicks than I normally like. The new button at the top, if you just click on new, it's going to create a new contact, but if you click on the little arrow, then you can see opportunity. You can also see the keyboard shortcut. Now, all of these functions that I'm showing you work in both Windows and web, okay? Control F11 does not work in web, and nor does right-clicking, but right-clicking is actually my favorite one. So right from within the contact, I always right-click, and I can go down and I can click on Create New Opportunity, okay? And just wait for this to pop up. Okay, so now we have a new opportunity, and it's automatically created here, and you can see, as I said, the contact is attached. So because the opportunities are a freestanding primary table, much like contacts, much like groups, much like companies, they have the ability to be freestanding without any contact associated with them. So you can add contact, not add a contact. So when you create a new one, if you're outside of the contact view, it will create an opportunity without one. So that's why you always want to start with the contact, rather than creating a new opportunity and then hunting for the contact that you need. Now, by default, these are all the default settings that you've got immediately. So it's going to call itself new opportunity. There is no special naming conventions that I can recommend. Everyone's going to have different ways of doing it based on their business, but by default, what I typically do is I base it on the nature of the sale. So we're just going to say widgets, and then surface. Okay. Now, the next part, by default, any opportunity you create is going to be open, but you can see the status are, open, closed won, closed lost, and inactive. More on that later. Then there's the processes. Now, the processes determine the stages that you're going to go through to complete a sale. In many ways, at a high level, you've got the standard stages that exist within all of them, but there's different stages for different businesses. I knew a commercial realtor that would have an 18-month closing period, and he had a very, very long sales process. Whereas the other extreme, I had a basement company that their primary business was dealing with people who had flooded basements. And they used to joke with me that the very first stage started at a 50% probability, because when your basement's flooded, you don't go out for 3 quotes. The point of that story is that every single business is different, and we're going to get into how to create these stages and processes so that they're a bit more tailored for your business later. But just for the purpose of our sequence here, we're just going to continue on the actual creation of them. So let's look at the additional information. Reason we don't need to worry about, estimated close date. This is a very, very important field, and it's underestimated by a lot of new users of opportunities. The estimated close date isn't just simply some conjecture. This actually is the field around which all reporting and almost all filtering for opportunities is hooked. Okay, so if you're doing projected income reports, which we'll show later, if you're doing filtering by dates, it's not open dates. Open dates is like a quick timestamp, largely irrelevant. Most people will not track outside of the days open that an opportunity was created. The estimated close date is the most important field in an opportunity, because that's what's going to frame your reporting. Actual close date, this will automatically populate when you close a deal as one. Okay, and then you'll see these grayed out fields are ones for tracking that the system takes care of. So you don't have to enter any information. Now, for those of you that are looking at these stage start date and days in stage, if you've been using ACT for more than a couple of years and you're using ACT 20 or 21, you're probably looking at these and saying, I've never seen these before. They actually were introduced, I believe it was with version 20, and it was a new field. We were actually instrumental in getting these fields in because a lot of people needed to set triggers based on how long you were in a particular stage. And I'll give you an example. If you're in the quote stage and you're a sales manager, you want to be able to do a quick report to see if you've got any of the sales reps that are stuck in the quote stage for, say, more than 30 days. And that's going to be able to trigger you that you need to intervene. So we created this so that you can actually track the number of days, and when it's keeping track of it, it will also allow you to build automation around it. So you can use either smart tasks or some of our automation products to notify you. Okay, but that's what that's about. If you don't see these fields, then go into Tools, Define Layouts, and click on Opportunity and make sure that you add those fields. I'm not going to get into this as an admin class, but that's how you would get in there. You would click on that, and then you can add them as I have here. Okay, now, up here is fairly straightforward. You can see the contact attached to it, the companies that attach to it, because Chris Huffman has a dynamically linked company. CH Tech One automatically populates. But you notice that all of these are blank, okay, or 0. And the reason is that, in ACT 2009, we had a very, very basic opportunity table that was actually what's called a child table to contacts. And what you would do in order to put in the total is essentially that. You would just click in here, type in X number of dollars, and that was your total. There was nothing that was driving that number. There was nothing that was calculated. It was automatically that, and then you just had basically your probability times that. Thankfully, in 2010, they promoted the opportunity table to a primary table, and we were able to add many, many more functionalities. It supported an infinite more amount of customization, and we saw the support for notes and activities and histories and document attachings and everything else, okay? But for this purpose, we're at 0, and we need to see how to add it. And we click on over here, products and services. Very, very straightforward. I'm going to click on add. And we have the ability to either pull from an existing list, and if you wanted to actually see what that looks like, you can add there. I'm going to get into this a little bit more later, but this is the components of all the basic parts. A lot of people, because they do this rather dynamically and they don't have a static product list or one that's even short enough to use. So what they'll do is they'll just manually type in. So we're going to just say widget, and we're going to say W200. This part isn't super necessary. And then the quantity. Quantity is straightforward. We're going to say 500, okay? The cost. Every time I teach opportunities and people see the cost, I know that business owners say, whoa, 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 I don't necessarily want to share that. There's purchase costs, there's landing costs, and then there's, none of your damn business costs. I understand that owners don't want to share this information, and what I'm here to tell you is it doesn't matter, okay? If you don't put in cost, it will only impact one report, and that's the margin report. So don't get stuck on the cost. That's really not an issue, and you probably won't be running that report very often anyway. What is important is the price, okay? So we're going to put in, let's say, $25, and it will immediately adjust that here. Now, the discount, you could see that you've got the total down here. The discount is if you have something, you want to calculate a discount based on quantity, things like that. It's not going to automatically know it, but you may want to put in 5% and it will automatically calculate. And then that's it. And the nice thing about this format is that you're able to add not just products, but services as well. So you can put in installation and put in one for all of them, and we're going to just say $500. And now you've got a very basic opportunity. But you can see all of this information has populated up here, okay? Now let's kind of review, now that we've got some real numbers, let's kind of look at what we're talking about here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save it, okay? And I can see I've got total here, and I've got gross margin. Again, gross margin, this is interesting to some, but because we put in no cost, it's assuming that we've got 100% markup. The salespeople aren't going to care about this, so you can remove this from the layout if you choose. But here's the important one, weighted probability. Now, the weighted probability is very, very simple. It is based on this total times the probability. Okay, now there's a lots of ongoing debate and confusion about, how scientific this is, how accurate this is. Let me just show you how it works in a very basic level. We've selected this particular sales stage, and I'm going to say presentation. Okay, now what I have done is, and as I said, this will be a little bit more apparent when we're going through the creation of these sales stages, is I've set presentation to be by default at 40%. But that's rather, it's rather meaningless because, quite frankly, the presentation and the probability don't take into account the pre-existing relationship that you've got with the prospect. So if I've got a new sale to a new prospect, it might, in fact, be at 40%. But if I've got the same quote to someone that I have quoted many times and closed many times, I would expect that my probability would be a lot higher. I've built up that credibility, so I would expect my batting average with that particular person is going to be higher. Okay, I save again. Now you're going to see the weighted probability. Now, what is the weighted probability aside from just, a math formula? The reason on a particular opportunity, one single opportunity, the weighted opportunity or the weighted value of this is not especially important, okay, just on a one-off basis because it's rather subjective. And people often come to me, well, how do I know if it's 70% or 80%? You know, doesn't that seem, you know, rather arbitrary to guess that with so many subjective elements in it? But the truth is, one particular one doesn't matter. Okay, what does matter is the aggregate of all of your opportunities. You may be a little optimistic on one opportunity, you may be a little pessimistic on the other, but they will average themselves out fairly reliably to allow you to project income. That's what it is about. By the weighted probability is really meant as a tool to project your income. Okay, so with that, I'm going to save this again. Okay, we've gone through the steps here, weighted probability. Now, I am going to show you one quick tool that you can use here within the opportunities. I'm not a big fan of it, but I would be remiss in not showing you. There is a tool called Create Quote. And what it is a Word and Excel template that merges together to create a very basic quote. And see it here, just going to merge them together. Often pops under as well. Okay, and it's of course brought it over to the other screen. So let me drag this over. Okay, so it is made this Word template. It's brought in and you can edit this template to a certain extent, but you can see that it's brought in all the information. Now, this hasn't changed in about 10 years. Okay, so you can understand that it's a little bit dated and rudimentary for most modern business purposes, but if you got nothing, this isn't bad. This is an improvement. You can see how it breaks it down. It calculates everything, puts in taxes, so on and so forth. And all the customer information is merged in as well. Okay. The only thing that I'm going to mention to you is that if you're going to play around with this, be careful about editing these sections. One of the things about this particular quote template is that it breaks rather easily. And if it does, then you'll need to drag the same template out of the demo database and drop it into your template folder again to restore it. Okay, but that's as much time as I'm going to spend on that one because I'm not a big fan of it. Okay, and we'll cover some more useful ones here. So let's go to list view. But you can see across here we've got detail view, and now we're going to go to list view. Now, list view here, I just need to, okay. So with this, how do I, okay, perfect. Okay, so with this, now we've got all of our opportunities in list, and by default there, I've got them as all dates and open. Now with, I believe it was again version 20, they introduced the dynamic opportunities and dynamic dashboards, and now we've got a display of the KPIs running across the top. So you can see here, open count, open value, open value weighted, forecasted value, things like that all across the board. And you can add to this as well your additional KPIs, okay, and you can create them here, okay. But this is right now, we've got all of them. But for our purposes, this is more than sufficient. What I really want to demonstrate is for this to be useful, having an opportunity of all dates is not terribly practical because obviously, any ones from 2018 and such, these are just, taking up space. They're not likely to be ever closed. So we're going to say, narrow this to something a little bit more relevant. I always go by current month. Now, I accept that this is going to be, I'm going to just say actually, we'll actually say all dates just because it's a demo database, okay? And I've set open. I've got the ability here to set by process. Now, where this is relevant, like in our business, we have service business, we have sales business, we have projects, things like that. And what we do to divide them up in projecting income and things like that is we've set them up all into different processes. So in this case, we're going to just select all of them. And I've got the ability, now the moment that you select all, you can't select a stage because you can only see a stage within a particular process. So now I'm going to say, maybe I only want to see particular ones. Okay, I can also say probability. You can see a lot of these are at 40%. I probably don't want to spend a whole lot of time dwelling and doing reports on 40%. So what I can do is I can say greater than 49, which would be 50% and up. Okay, so this becomes useful, and you can see that these values will automatically adjust at the top. Okay, now if you just want to look at this list and say I want to go to the contacts, you've got the ability to say go to contacts or create lookup. Okay, lookup selected. Okay, now the lookup selected may seem like the same thing, but in this case, you may want to select parts of them and say lookup selected, and now you're going to only see those ones. And sometimes you want to cherry pick and have very, very specific kind of non-criterion based selections, in which case being able to select them and right click is really handy. And if you ever want to go back, you just click on reset and you're back to the default values here. So I'm going to say all dates. Open. And what's most relevant for most salespeople or most sales managers is they want to just look at one sales rep. Okay, they don't necessarily want to drill down through the opportunities that belong to other people. Okay, so I'll leave them at that for now. Now, once we're in here, there's a lot we can do from list view that is really quite cool. Okay, so obviously when you're in list view, you can double click, you can sort by any of the columns. So any column header, you can click on them. You can obviously the ones that are text-based are going to be alphabetical. The ones that are numeric, like probability, weighted total, okay, or estimated close date, that will sort by those numbers. Okay. So if you want to click on here and see the top to bottom, that's how that's going to work. Okay. Applying the filters, updating Opps. Okay, so what we want to do is, let's say we go in here, click on any one of them. You've got the ability to go in and change. Often what you will do within an opportunity when you drill down, you're going to be changing the estimated close date, advancing it on stages, whichever. These are the most common things, or you're going to be making in histories or notes or things like that relating to the actual opportunity. Okay, it's very unlikely that you're going to be changing anything in terms of the total or the gross margin. Okay, let's go back to the list view. Now, when you're in the list view, there's actually a number of very cool things here that most people overlook, and it's always because going across the top here. So we've covered detailed view, and we're in list view. We're going to skip over a pipeline view for now. Printing is self-evident, and then you're going to see create quote, which we've covered. Now let's take a look at the opportunity graph. Now, as I said, the opportunity table is the only real primary table in the database that is based on transactional data. So the reporting that you get from it is actually quite useful. So when we click on that, we can do a quick graph. We can say we want to do all contacts. Sometimes if you do current contacts or that, you're going to find that you have unexpectedly light responses. So I typically recommend do it all contacts so that you don't have opportunities that you're looking at, okay, turn around filtered out based on the fact that your contact lookup is different than your opportunity lookup. Okay, so past that, then you've got open opportunities. You can put in adjust for probability, and you'll see that the total will go to weighted total. Okay, now then you're going to see closed won. When you click on closed won, this essentially goes from being a pipeline report to a sales report, because it's going to filter out all the ones that are based on the estimated close date and focus more on the close date, okay, or the actual close date. Same thing with the rest of them. You've got some formatting flexibility here in terms of what you want the header to say, the footer to say. Obviously, if you're looking to print this off, this is useful. And then you can determine what the columns are going to be by. Or you want to track them by day or by month or by year or quarter. And then, the from and to date. I call these the runtime conditions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say first, and then I'm going to go to 12/31/2018. Okay, and then I get to pick here. I've gone from the general, which relates to the data, to the graph, which relates to how it's presented. We're going to start with the graph versus the line. Okay. We're going to say, shrink graph to fit within the dialog, 3D just because it looks cooler, auto scaling. I'm not a big fan of the vertical lines because it doesn't really represent much, but horizontal lines give you a guide in terms of the values of each of them. So now I click on here and then graph. Starting date. Oh, I switched the starting date here. Okay. Okay, graph. And boom. Okay, you've got a very, very nice graph. You can change the colors as you saw under the graph. And then if this isn't presenting the way that you like, you can quickly click on options and go back, change colors. My daughter will be pleased with that selection. Okay, and organize them. Let's say you want, you go back to the general and week is creating too many. You got a lot more cleaner look. Now you see how I selected the horizontal lines. The horizontal lines in this graph actually indicate, precisely the value of each, so that they have a bit more value. Whereas the vertical lines, I think they just clutter it up. So, that's a quick way of generating a graph in terms of your opportunities, and then you've got the option to print or copy, whichever. Okay, copy I believe is useful for when you want to go into Excel and paste them as illustration there. Click on close. Okay, now the next one, we've got opportunity graphs, manage product lists we're going to get into later. Okay, and then create lookup from opportunities. That's like, as I said at the beginning, opportunities or ACT itself has many different ways of doing the same thing. So when you right click and you say go to contact or create lookup, it's the same thing as doing here. Okay, and then here you got customized columns. This is useful. Let's say that here I added the actual close date, but let's say there was another value that I wanted. I'm going to click on close here and quickly going through here. Let's say I did want to put in the create date. Okay, and then I want to put in days open. Okay, actually I don't really need both. But this here actually gives me, and I'm just going to click on one more time, and I'm going to move this up. Now, when I'm looking at my opportunity list, one of the things, values are great, but my guess is the older the opportunity, the more stale it is and the less likely it is to close. Now, that's not going to be true for all industries, but this is where it's nice to be able to customize columns, and you've got your quick list of all your data, and then you can play with it and sort with it accordingly. Now, being able to control the columns becomes really important for the next feature, where you see this little Excel. Now, this is a vastly underestimated feature that isn't used nearly enough. And when you see what happens when you click on this, you're going to wonder why yourself. So now I'm going to click on this. It's going to export to Excel. And you would think that it's just going to export this list, and you're going to get an Excel rendering of the list that you're looking at. It's actually a lot more. So now you've got a list here. So this kind of looks exactly like what you were seeing in there, and you see the total weighted probability, and you see the totals, and you could see now you've got all the days open, the actual close date. Actual close date obviously is a sales value and not a pipeline value. Okay, but let's take a look at what else we have. Take a look at opportunities pivot chart. Okay, now if we had all of the record managers in here, I would have a chart for each and every single record manager. Okay, and then take a look at the opportunities pivot here, where it actually gives me the KPIs on all of them. This suddenly becomes really, really easy, grabbable data. Okay, that a lot of people find super useful. Okay. Now let's go back to this. Just going to close that now. Okay, just want to make sure to see how we're doing with time. Okay, the one other thing at the end of every single month or the beginning of the following month, internally, we always review the validity of an opportunity because what we try to do is track all opportunities from month to month. And this is less technical and more what I think is a practical application of it. And that is at the end of every single month, beginning of the next, review your opportunities to determine which should be pushed forward, like have the, say here, which should have an estimated close date that gets pushed and which opportunities should be killed. Okay, killed, obviously, closed lost. Estimated close date in this case, if I wanted to push it into the next month, that means that I'm going to continue the hunt. But if I'm going to close it as lost, that doesn't mean that I'm never going to sell that person. It's just, for me, it is not worth keeping in my tracking because the probability is dipped below something that is worth it. Okay, the trail has gone cold, and I just soon not have it clutter up my report and create false presumptions of projected income. Okay, so you should be doing this, and when you click on this, watch what happens. Okay, if I click on this and I save, okay, you see an actual close date automatically populate. Okay, you click on here. Okay, it's telling me I'm making some errors. I'm going to go back to close one. Okay, now the red dot here is telling me that. Okay, so now I've closed this one, and when I go back to my list view, this is going to disappear because I'm filtering only by open. Okay, but as a general practice, anyone that's working with opportunities should always review the validity of their opportunities on a month-to-month basis. I've seen people where they've had hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities, and the practical reality is that they become pretty much useless when they're too much to track and you've got too much cluttered. Okay, now let's go to. We talked about updating ops, closing, pushing. Okay, now I said I would get into the process list, and let's do that. When you're within the opportunity list, to adjust the process, you just click on opportunities, and you go down to the process list. Now, quick note, ACT is a synchronizing product. So if you have a synchronizing database, otherwise known as an RDB, this will be grayed out. You will not be able to modify this because the process list is actually considered part of the schema. It's not like field data or the products. If you make a change to this, it can only be done on the master database. So be mindful of that if that gets grayed out. Okay, but I'm using a demo database that's local to this one, so I'm good. Okay, now if I want to edit the process list, I select one, I click on edit, and I could just simply go here. Now, as I said, you can go through, you can add the stages, you can put in, there's like for me, presentation, my next stage would be quotation. Okay, so I would put in add. Okay, and I might put in 50, and then I would move it up. Okay, and now this actually more accurately reflects the workflow I have behind my opportunities. Okay, and that's as simple as it is. Now, simple as that. So let's click on finish. Now, if I want to add one, I'm going to create a new one. We're going to call this Act 1, description listed as active, and you're just going to go through the intro, discovery, put this at 10. And again, as you've seen, each one of these probabilities can be adjusted within the quote or within the opportunity. So these are just meant to be a guideline. Okay. Presentation, let's put that 30%. Quotation, 50%. Okay. Negotiation at 75%. And signing contract. Okay. and you put this at 95. Do not put it at 100%. 100% is what it will automatically update to when you close it. So if you put 100%, you're going to end up with 200% values, okay? And when you select it and it's 100%, it won't close. The only thing that will close it is by selecting close. Okay, now we've got this, and I'm going to pull this up. And now you're going to see here, I've got the option to select this. Nothing else changes. You've seen that the weighted changes, and I'm going to put in here quotation, it automatically. And now when I save it, start date, it's assuming here. Okay. And now we've got an updated one. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the list view. Okay. So that is pretty much all there is to the process list. It's fairly straightforward. It's meant to be just a guideline, but you should tailor make them for your own business so that you're not asking your salespeople or yourself to comply with an ill-fitting process list that doesn't reflect your sales workflow. Okay. Now, the next thing is products. I did mention that you can, put in on the fly products, put in the values, and you can continue to do that. But if you've got a pick list of 20 or 30 products that you use each and every single day, why would you bother? Why wouldn't you just type it in and have it automatically populate? So we can click on here, manage product list. Okay, and we've got some basic ones here. Now, you've got two options. If you've got a short list, you can just add them in here and just type in and go, new product, or we'll just say widget. This item number is not required, as I said, nor is the cost, but then you put in $5, okay? Now, a lot of people look at this and cringe and say, wow, I've got 20, 30 products. I really don't want to be typing each one of them in. I already have a spreadsheet that covers all of these. Well, you can import them in quite easily, but the first thing you need to do is understand, what the file format is. And the simple way is once you enter in 5 or 6, and I'm just going to put in a value here, okay, 1 just for demonstration purposes. Okay, now I want to see the file format so I can prepare my list of products so that the data accurately reflects it. I'm going to click on export. And I'm going to say test 1, and you see it's coming out as a CSV file. Okay. And now I'm going to go to desktop. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's because I'm looking at the wrong desktop here. That's why. Okay, so here, bring this over. You can see here now, do not open this up in Excel. If you open it up in Excel, even though it says an Excel file, it will display nothing useful. So you right click on it and you go open with, and you select Notepad. Now you can actually see the data. So what you want to do is analyze how the data is formatted. Well, you can see name, comma, name again, comma, name, comma. So basically, all your values are delimited by commas. So now you know how to structure your data, that for it to be supported for import, it's got every single value has got to be separated by a comma. Now, if there is one, like let's say you don't want to put in the actual product type or the item, then what you do is you just make sure that you've got a space and you've got so you've got the name, then comma, space, and then another comma. And that way it will make sure that this information goes into the right columns when you're importing. Okay? And then the process goes in reverse. I'll just click on here, save. I'm actually going to create one more product, widget 2, comma, okay, 1, comma, 2, comma, 5. Okay, save. And I know that this process is probably a bit dry. We're going to click on here. We're going to browse. It's going to go here. Now, replace products with the same name? No. Okay. So actually, I'm going to say yes. And then source file has column headers? Yes, we saw that because we don't want them imported in as products. So if this works properly, I'm not going to get one with names across the top, and I should have one widget too. And then import, boom. I've got widget 2. Now, that's as tough as it is. And if you've got 20, 30, 40, being able to type in little commas separating all the values in a spreadsheet or exporting them as comma delimited, okay, we'll achieve the same thing and you'll be able to import in large lists. Okay? Now, that is, whenever you talk about the products and importing, that's always a big crowd pleaser. So let's go into something that has a bit more sex appeal. I think one of the biggest changes to the opportunity section in the last few years was introduced with, I believe, V20, and that is the pipeline view. This really, really adds quite a bit of dynamic capabilities. This is what we call the dynamic dashboard, okay? And now you've got the ability to actually manage your opportunities in a totally different, intuitive, graphical drag and drop way. So now, instead of a long horizontal list, they have divided them up and created them or organized them in columns based on the stages that they're in, okay? So you can set over here, you can see the date range is this year, the process. If you change this, all of these things will be adjusted accordingly. Okay, but what's really nice is instead of going in and editing each one, you can kind of go through here and say, okay, this one has really advanced along. It's not at 25% anymore. It's actually, you got to be careful. Very sensitive. I'm going to actually put this one over to committed to buy, okay? And remember, this is not a double click, it's a single click, so that was my mistake. And you can kind of organize them, and you can see how this dynamically changes. Now, you may look at this one and say, sales fulfillment is fine, this one's already in the win column, I don't need to see that. And that's how easy it is to clear out, okay? You can just disable any part of it from view. And if we click on it, it kind of moves to the side a little bit and then back for added emphasis. Okay, but this is really quite a powerful feature in terms of managing your opportunities. And if you go here and say, show me this one, it automatically will filter out all the ones. And that's, I think you'll agree that that's pretty responsive. We only have one under act, and this it's showing up here. Okay, and let's go back to the CH1. Okay, now, so we've got drag and drop, and then obviously the click through, disable within stages. We've covered the products. Okay, so we're about 43 minutes into the presentation. So just going back here. So again, the top view, if you ever want to get to this, you've got detail view. Come on. You've got your list view. And we're just going to reset this so we get a bit more in here. Now, another way of blowing up your current lookup is to say, go under here, look up all opportunities, okay, and that will automatically replace the existing one that you've got. Okay, obviously being able to search by opportunities over here and just type in the name, you can do that as well. Okay, and then as I said before, selecting a group, and let's say lookup selected, and then selecting them again, right click, go to contact. And suddenly you've got a view of all the people that you're currently have open or related opportunities to. So this becomes really useful. And then you may want to just say, oh, okay, here's the people that have email addresses. I want to do a quick lookup of these guys and send them out a bulletin here saying that, the sale is ending today. Okay. One of the things that I do is each and every single month, a couple of days before the end of the month, I will go to my opportunity list. Okay. I will say here, create lookup. And then I go to a group. Okay. And I'm going to say new group. And we're going to say open ops for month end. Okay. And I have this group in mind. And then what I do is I just simply select all these guys, add to group, add them into here. Now, if I go back to the group, you're going to notice that these are all here. Why do I want them in a group? Is because I'm a big user of Act Marketing Automation. I can now send them a email announcing it's month end, buy now, prices are going to change next week. You want to take advantage of this deal. Okay, so these are little tools that all work synergistically together. The groups features, the contacts, looking up the contacts from the opportunity, dumping them into a group, and using the e-marketing to be able to notify them. So that's how quickly it is to toggle, across the different tables and organize them, even on an ad hoc basis, so you can do some quick marketing. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the opportunity list. Now, I did mention with, I think, thinly veiled contempt, my feelings toward the quoting tool that's built within Act, just because I don't think it's anything that, most businesses are going to use or want to reflect their business. So if I can just quickly indulge people in a demonstration of one of our products, here is Quoting for Act. And Quoting for Act either can work with a new opportunity or an existing opportunity. All it needs is, basically to be open and have a single product. And when you click on Quoting for Act, it automatically pops up and it pulls in all of the information that you've got. And this is really, really nice if you've got, you need to be able to create quick, professional looking quotes, email them out, have them attached to your opportunities, and, quickly generate them, and you can have them under multiple departments. So in this case, this pulled up the unit cost, everything. I can add shipping. I can even tell the person how much deposit is required here. Okay. 64 seems rather random. Okay. It pulls in all the information here from the contact. Valid to, the valid to automatically is pulled over from the estimated close date. So now I'm going to say right to the end of the month. And that's it. I can add shipping values. We've added things like foreign exchange because we're constantly selling both in multiple countries, so we need to be able to have that flexibility. You can put in your tax rates. Taxes here are adjusted, and you can put in your individual tax rates for your region or the area that you're selling into, and then you just click on print. And boom. Okay, now obviously I've put in some silly graphics here, but you can see it's very, very straightforward, much more professional looking, indicating all your shipping costs, and you can deselect any one of these values, foreign exchange, shipping costs, whichever, but you've got information like deposit required, tax number, everything else, okay, and have your specific slogans, whichever. What's really cool is you even have the ability to set in under document settings here. This is where you put in the graphics. You can even put in an email template. So when you email this content automatically comes forward. This is where you adjust your footer and your disclaimer information, your default tax settings, and even your currencies. Okay, so that's one tool. That one is billable. Okay, it's not terribly expensive. It's $100 one-time cost, but one that a lot of our our customer use that they quite like is Oplet for Act. This is very, very inexpensive. I think it's like $20. But now that we've gone through the process of creating opportunities, let's see this optimized in a really, really simple way. So you've got people that have to enter in a lot of opportunities a day. I think you'll agree, as elegant as that the opportunity creation process is, it still involves a lot of toggling around in different fields. What if you can really optimize that? So you click on this. Okay. Okay. What would a demo be without something that isn't working? Okay, so that isn't working. So that's we're going to bypass that one. Okay, then the other one is when you need to update a lot of opportunities at once. Okay, so I'm going to go to list view. I get asked this all the time, and if it seems like I'm going to finish with a strong point, it's deliberate. Let's say that I want to update a lot of opportunities at once. Okay, this is fairly tricky. Otherwise, where you would have to either, let's say you want to close a bunch of opportunities that meet a certain criteria, or open a bunch opportunities, or set them in different stages or cycles. What you can do now is select the updater. Okay, say status do not change, or change the status of all of the ones in view. Okay, change the sales cycle of all the ones in view, and then change, obviously, until you select that, you can't select the next one. Okay, but this allows you. I've had a number of ACT consultants that go on the forums and say, a customer of mine has 2,000 open opportunities from 2017. How do I close all of them? Okay, this is just do the filter. Okay, just put in close loss. Okay, and apply. Okay, and you can see them all losing. Now, this is not only cool, it's also free. So you can see the updating, you saw the updating of the status, you can see the updating of the stage, and you can see everything else updating at once. But this product is part of our, I'm just going to pull this up here. If you go to our apps, go to our free plugins, and you open up the welcome kit. Everyone that attended here was by invitation only. You're all customers, and you're welcome to the welcome kit, which includes things like the concatenators, but with a K, where it allows you to combine different values from different fields into a third one. SQL Manager, this is a super cool feature. How many people have started ACT and have had the notice that SQL isn't running? Well, this allows you to actually stop and start SQL from within ACT. Here, start, stop, do all of that within ACT. Okay, multi-search. I have a lot of people that use this just for this function only. Imagine if you had an email list of, say, 200 people, or you're using marketing automation, and you have a list of all the bounces, okay, and you only got like this long list of, say, 200 bounces. You can select the 200 bounces, click on lookup. Okay, you got to be in the contact list. Click on lookup, multi-search, and paste in all of the email list here, and then just do OK, and it will look up all the contacts connected with that, and then you can update them. Let's say they bounced or whichever, so you don't mail them again. Okay. The rest, I'm going to leave you guys to kind of go through. Those are, layout switchers a bit. I'm going to ask people to read about that. Activity reassigner, this is really useful. If you have someone that's leaving, say on mat leave, and you need to reassign all their opportunities, you can select all of them and assign them to another user. That feature isn't built within ACT. Op history for ACT is, again, a free utility. And what happens is, if you create an opportunity or a history within the opportunity, it actually doesn't attach to the related contact of that opportunity. This utility does. It actually will install it, so it would automatically populate up to the contact. Okay, and then the rest I'm going to actually have you guys review separately, but they're all free apps, and I encourage you guys to take advantage of them. So with that, I've got about 5 minutes to go. So
Okay,
Vic,
Ken?
if you want to open it up for questions.
Yeah, the first question is, once I close an opportunity, is there a way to have it automatically reopen in my pipeline 1 year later as a new op?
I don't think anything within the program can do that. That would have to, you would need to submit that. What you can do is set an automated trigger to fire off a year later to remind you, but I don't believe that you can actually duplicate a closed op a year later. And I know where you're heading. There's lots of annual contracts, and you want to kind of catch their renewals. But I don't believe there's an automated way to create them automatically. But you can certainly create like a little nudge or a tickler for you to manually create it a year later.
Yeah, he said, or just a new task off of those.
Yep. Yeah, you can trigger that. There's several ways of doing that. You can use our automation tools like the notifier, or you can try your luck at Smart Task. But I'm not super confident with that feature. But there is, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, Robert, take a look at the notifier. You can find it on our website, and it's spelled with a K as well. And I think that would meet your needs right there. Excuse me. Another question, does the welcome kit need to be installed on the server or on the client?
It needs to be installed on the client. Good question. Because all of them are local functions. So if you install them on the server, then, unless you're using terminal services and remoting in, then you won't have access to something that's installed on the server. So it needs to be installed on each of the local stations for each of the users. But it's free.
Okay. All right, excellent. And where will we be posting the video, Ken, of this?
We'll be posting it on our YouTube site, okay? And we typically, if you go to our website, you can see our YouTube icons. They're everywhere throughout our site, and you just click on them, and you'll see it populated in the next couple of days.
Okay, and they said, is quoting for ACT is on the server?
Quoting for ACT, you need to install it once on the server because you have to install it where the master database is, because it's got to create 4 or 6 fields, I believe, 6 fields in the opportunity table, okay, for it to track certain changes and track certain tax information and closing dates and things like that. But once it's done, it can be installed on any of the remotes. In fact, if you manually create them on the server, then you can install them that way afterwards. But it has to work off of the local workstations. And the other thing that I didn't mention is that quoting for ACT works both in ACT for Windows and ACT for Web.
Now, there's 2 questions here that are not directly related. One is, can you share some of the features coming in V22?
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
Okay. I wish I could, but I know there's been some changes of late, so I don't want to create any expectations falsely.
All right, and that's it for the questions.
Wow, I'm getting off easy.
Yes, very easy.
Okay.
So
I hope you guys got a lot from this. Opportunities is a section, believe it or not, even though I've been talking for an hour, opportunities is something that I often have to kind of pull myself back, because you can do deep dives into almost every single part of it. But believe me when I say this, when you start using opportunities and you use them to track, different business deals and that, you'll be able to really accurately project income that you can expect over the course of, say, the next month, the next 3 months, and it works really, really well. Sometimes, as I said, you'll have opportunities that are optimistic, some opportunities that are pessimistic, but they really average out nicely. This is a science that all CRM tools have used for the last, 30 years, and it works very, very reliably.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ken, for the wonderful presentation. So we'll be posting this on the YouTube channel, and if you have any questions, you can email us as well. Ken, what email address should they send to if they have questions?
Use yours, vic@keystroke.ca.
Perfect. That works for me.
Okay.
All right. So,
okay. Go ahead.
All right. I just want to say thank you very much. Anything else, Ken?
No, thanks. I know it's an hour-long presentation, so we certainly appreciate your time, and I hope that you guys find value in it. And please visit the training videos and the free apps. They are free and certainly welcome for you to use, and then you can get trial versions of some of the other ones that are billable, like the Opplet and Quoting for Act.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.